And so today we have my man Scott Lumley in the group, and Scott is the founding member at the Resolve Commercial LLC, which involves, and I'll let him explain a little bit more what that involves. But he's from Nashville, Tennessee. He lives in Hendersonville, Tennessee. But I think he's actually from Dyersburg, Tennessee also. There's a lot of Tennessee's references here. And you'll definitely be able to tell by his accent that he's definitely from the South, which some of us are used to, some of us maybe not so much. And well, first, let me just start off with this. This is how Scott and I met. We didn't meet on the best of terms, I guess, but it actually turned into a good relationship. One morning we read Dan Henry's emails on the group as far as just to try to find out how people think, when it comes to entrepreneurship and inviting people to webinars. And when we saw his emails, everybody in the room was like, oh my gosh, how does this guy make a sale? Because it looks like he needs spell check. It was a lot of errors, a lot of things. And one thing I kind of took up for him a little bit. And the reason why is because I feel a lot of people who get into entrepreneurship get into it because we don't have no other way. Meaning like we weren't great in school. We were looking out of the window. Some of us have learning disabilities, all kinds of stuff, socially awkward, whatever. And entrepreneurship is a way for us to make money. So it doesn't necessarily look polished, but it definitely is a way. And what I chimed in to Scott was, Russell Brunson was asking, like, who should we invite to speak? And Dan Henry was actually on the list. Now, I thought that was amazing. Here's a guy we're reading that if you look at his words, it looks like, man, this guy is something wrong with him. Like he can't write sentences. But the fact that he's on Russell Brunson's list, I thought was freaking amazing. We read his book here. And then Scott came in and basically tore him a new asshole. I guess that's the best way to put it. And I kind of took up with Dan, and what I said was, Scott, look.
You're an asshole. Don't forget that part.
Oh yeah, I definitely said you're an I definitely said you're an asshole.
Sorry, I didn't want to leave out the adjectives. Go ahead.
But then I said, there's $1 billion industry with the dummy market, meaning eBay for dummies, Facebook for dummies.
And he's got it cornered.
Yeah, and here's the thing: that demographic, like Sean said earlier, you could go on the Facebook Blueprint and read. These people aren't reading these things. These people are watching, Real Housewives in freaking New Jersey, all this other. They're going to bars. They want the Cliff Notes version, and the actual subject of marketing scares the crap out of them. So Dan Henry is their freaking savior. He's the second coming of Christ to them. And to marketers who really, really dig deep into this, they're like, man, this is like an Ebonics course. Like, what the heck is this? And that's that's the argument. So when he gets in there, I could tell he's not comfortable, right? So we're gonna start it there. And
well, you do know the whole thing about the sticky cookie, don't you?
No, tell me about that.
That's how he won that contest. That's why there's a lot of animosity. That's why there's a lot of animosity between him and Russell Brunson, because he cheated when he won that affiliate contest. But for ClickFunnels to actually retract on that, they would just basically, it would destroy their entire marketing platform because they would have to go out and did that. But we did something that's called a stick, which means he basically injected code into other people's code. So when other people were passing out their affiliate links, he was pushing his affiliate link. So there's a big stink. But let's talk about commercial real estate.
yeah, we can definitely get it.
Oh, heck, no. Heck, the only reason why I woke up 5 o'clock was to bash on Dan Henry. Seriously.
Well, Scott.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm teasing. I'm just being funny.
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna be honest. When it comes to commercial real estate, like just recently, like we have 2 realtors in here, Dana and Chuck, and Pat.
Don't call me for listings.
I'm sorry.
Don't call me for listings.
Well, so I just took the bite as far as, getting some property, residential. And Yolanda and CJ, they're a couple. They also just took the bite too, as far as getting some things done. Now, commercial real estate to me is a whole different thing. And when you go to your Facebook page, you see you standing in front of, I guess, one of your homes. You can't mix the sports cars, the big truck out there. Looks like a nice set of vehicles in front of your yard. But I guess the biggest question for me, Scott, is how did you even get started? Give us a little background about you.
Well, hopefully y'all can understand me. I do have a heavy accent. I'm sorry, I am from the South, and unfortunately, when you hear this voice, you automatically assume we're dumb.
I can translate. I'm a translator of the South too, Scott. So you.
Okay, well, good. Well, we got a guy on here from almost Paducah, Kentucky, so he's got it. But so to answer your question, I mean, my story is quite an interesting story. The first thing is to answer your question is how I gained my current wealth is through real estate, and I was introduced to real estate in a very strange way. In 2008, and I'm going to give y'all the whole version here, so it's going to take about 10 minutes. But in 2008, I had one of the largest electronics companies in the United States. It took me almost 20 years to build it, or 15 years to build it. And we were doing distribution all over the world. And obviously in 2008, all hell broke loose in the economy. Extra TVs for the houses and things like that were just not something that was on people's minds. Gaming market started crashing. It just was bad. Circuit City filed bankruptcy. They were one of our largest suppliers. We were one of their largest suppliers. It was just bad, just really, really bad. I had about 200 employees. We did about $400 million a year, 14 retail locations. Just really, really had a very solid company, and I literally lost it in 120 days. When it went down really fast. Consequently, there were some things that happened inside of our company, which I'm sure by now y'all have Googled me and y'all know that. There was things that happened inside the company that did not resurrect until 2014. But the FBI come looking at me and said, "Hey, look, you had a transaction happen inside your company." I was like, "No, I had $25 million per month happen inside my company," and they were like, "Well, this one, y'all took the money on and didn't deliver the product." I was like, "Yeah, that probably happened more than once," but I didn't tell the FBI that. I just thought it, and so anyway, they decided they were going to considering an indictment against me because 3 loads of Red Bull didn't get delivered out of 4, and 1 did, which in my opinion is a civil matter. I listed on my bankruptcy. I've got a book that tells all about it. And anyway, to make a long story short, it was a pretty scary moment in time because at this time, I had a friend of mine. I obviously went into depression. I didn't want to work. I had lost a $400 million company. I don't know if y'all have ever lost, any of y'all have ever filed bankruptcy before, so you probably know how that feels. And it was just a dark, dark time. The next thing I know, I was just sad. I didn't want to work. I literally had been offered job after job after job, and I just kept telling people to get lost.
Wow.
I spent about a year where I would not work, period. I didn't want to talk to nobody. I stayed in a penthouse in downtown Nashville. I wouldn't come out of it and just said, "Leave me alone. I'm done." And a good friend of mine owned a very, very large real estate company. Believe it or not, he was being charged. He's a 35-year friend. And he's a Boy Scout. Let me go and clarify that. He was being charged with 18 counts of bank fraud. And I was like, "Do what?" I mean, this guy's a Boy Scout. Well, consequently, by the way, FYI, he was acquitted of all 18 counts. And you're not acquitted on 18 counts of bank fraud unless you're innocent. So, but they accused him of it. So his father had one of the largest real estate portfolios in the United States. Almost a $2 billion portfolio. I'm sorry, $20 billion portfolio. And it was a monstrous company. And they needed somebody they could trust. Here I am being accused of a crime, and they could trust me, right? So anyway, I made the decision, and I'll get to that in just a second. But so anyway, he had this large company. They were in trouble. They needed my help. So they literally come downtown Nashville with the U-Haul, literally physically walked up, picked me up, loaded all my stuff in a U-Haul, and I walked downstairs. His name's Dewey. I'll just kind of leave it like that. His name is Dewey, the father was. And I walked downstairs, and he handed me a brand new Chevrolet truck. I said, here's your new truck, and you're coming to work for us. I said, no, I'm not. He goes, yeah, you are. And he says, here's your truck. Threw me keys to a brand new black truck. And he said, I'll come to he said, all your stuff's going to be Mount Juliet in a U-Haul. You can either not have anything or you can show up. So I showed up. So I got there. He had a 3-story building. He had taken the whole top floor of the 3rd-story building and reconverted it into my office. He had a $250,000 check laying in the center of my desk, cashier's check, made with my name on it. And he said, and he walked into my office, or what was then my office, and he said, listen, you don't work for me. You're your own person, but I need you to help me with this company. My son's in trouble. He says, you're the only person who's been through this stuff that we know. You're the only person who's had this kind of business experience. And you're the only person that we trust, that we know that will do the right thing. I was like, well, they're trying to charge me with a crime. And I said, you do know that, right? And he goes, yeah, I do. You're not guilty of it. I know that. I said, no, I wasn't. So anyway, I said, but it's going to be a financial decision to go and take this deal because at that time it was a scary time. So anyway, I went to work for him. I didn't go to work for him. I went to work inside the company, and which consequently introduced me to real estate. So we went about 2.5 years through his indictment and literally kicked the U.S. government's tail because they were dead wrong. I participated in all parts and facets of that particular situation. I was being injected into 40, 50, 60, 70, $80 million real estate deals, so I couldn't even understand the verbiage of the terminology. I'd be sitting around with 20 attorneys, had no idea what was going on. And but as time went along, I learned every aspect of it. And next thing I know, I'm selling $6 and $8 million pieces of property to reposition the portfolio without them knowing it. So wow. I took the company and basically cleaned it up. As a matter of fact, it went from and I can't give exact numbers here, but it went almost a 20% increase in profitability in the 2 years that I was with them. And they loved me. And once Mark was acquitted, we had a couple, 2 or 3 big hotels downtown Nashville, and I sold 2 of them off, and he was acquitted, and I was introduced to the real estate business. Well, when he was acquitted, the U.S. government got real hot on me. They were like, "Look, this guy got him acquitted," and how they felt like I got him acquitted is that I negotiated. I was doing a lot of forbearances and a lot of, if anybody doesn't know what that means, just speak up and I'll tell you what a forbearance is. But I was doing a lot of forbearances and negotiations of major contracts with banks and mortgages. And they got, when I'd actually killed a $22 million mortgage, basically just paid it go away. And when I'd done that, what I didn't realize is that was the hook that the U.S. government was using to prosecute Mark. But I didn't know that at the time. I actually was just negotiating a deal. Well, when I negotiated that deal out, it allowed, there was no victim. So now all of a sudden the U.S. government had no case against him. So they got hot on me. Told me they were going to indict me over these three loads of Red Bull. Well, at this point in time, I had been in the real estate business for a few years, did very well. I was getting the crumbs off of their deals, which the crumbs off of their deals were massive. And I didn't want to run. I had a baby in the womb. I started falling back into depression because they were trying to indict me, and I finally started getting back on my feet again. I picked a pistol up, Walked back to the back of the building. I'm giving y'all the Cliff Note version of this. Sat down on a bucket, pulled out the pistol, stuck it in my mouth, pulled the trigger, and my phone rang. Now, why my phone was in my pocket, I'll have no earthly idea why. But it was. And I remember khaki pants. I remember the phone light coming through my britches. If you're ever around me very much, you'll see me rub my pants a lot with my phone because it's just a habit, and I'll tell you why in a second. When my phone rang, I looked over and picked up the phone. It was my father calling me, which I was very strange for my father. Didn't have a relationship with him. I ran away at 11 years old, which is another story for another time. When I answered the phone at 12:55, it's the moment that changed my life. When I answered the phone, he said, "Scott, your brother Michael committed suicide." I was like, "Do what?" He said, "Your brother Michael just committed suicide." Well, that was the moment that changed everything for me. Here I was, the guy that had all the problems. This kid didn't have a problem in the world. God decided to take him instead of take me. I don't know why. If I hadn't had my phone on me, I'd be dead. Because I'm the kind of guy that once I decide to do it, it gets done. Period. And my brother left the world with, he's a good kid. You know, I mean, he's 38 years old, never been married, successful businessman. He's just a good person. And no reason for him to leave this world. And every reason for me to leave. So that's when I decided that I was going to refocus, pull my head out of my tail after I went and watched his brain splattered all over a wall. And I was going to refocus and straighten my life out. So I dove into the real estate business real hot and heavy. I decided to do a plea agreement with the U.S. Attorney's Office because I didn't want to take and go through a tour. I just went through a 2.5-year indictment with Mark, and I didn't want to go through it again. It was one of the hardest things you'll ever go through because you really are up against a monster that you don't know which angle it's coming from. And so rather than run the risk of ruining my family and what I'd gotten back to, and I decided to go ahead and take a plea agreement, plead guilty, be put on probation, and forget about it. Well, I didn't realize that nobody else was going to let me forget about it. So I was in a room, had a guy who was very wealthy, was smart enough to me about, "Oh, we heard you got indicted, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Well, I didn't get indicted. I played a deal." And, "Well, we heard you're a criminal now." I was like, "Well, I didn't think I was a criminal, but I wasn't one before. I'm sure not one now, but okay, that's what you want to call me." And he made a statement, "Yeah, I looked you up on Google." And I said, "You know, that's really funny because I've never looked you up." And he just kind of looked at me, and I said, "You know what, but thank you, because you just gave me the title of my new book." And I turned and walked off. So I wrote the book, Don't Look Me Up. And the book is on Amazon, and it is not a good read. It is not something you will enjoy. But I can guarantee you, when you lay the book down, you'll realize your life is cake. Absolute cake with icing on top. Everything in it's factual and truthful, and everything I've just told you is factual and truthful. So I, 2.5 years after I went to work for Mark and Dewey, or work with Mark and Dewey, although I never really worked for them, I made all the decisions, done what I wanted to do, done when I wanted to do it, because I was that kind of guy. And I've done a good job running a company. Dewey come to me and looked at me and says, "How much money have you saved up?" I said, "About $7 million. He said, "Good. Now get out of my office."
Wow.
I was like, "What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong?" He goes, "You don't need us." He says, "You're probably one of the smartest businessmen I've ever seen." He said, "Go make your millions." He said, "I wanted to make sure you saved money. He goes, I wanted you to help us through this hard time with my son. You've done that. You've been a man of your word. You've been honest. Your integrity has been impeccable. Whatever you ever need in life, I've got your back." Consequently, since then, I've called him a couple of times when I've had super, super large deals that I couldn't do myself, and said, "Hey, I need you to sign behind me on a $40 million loan." "No problem." "Okay, thank you." And he's done that a couple of times for me. Of course, I've bought and sold all that stuff since then, so he's no longer on anything with me. So it was a weird introduction to real estate, but I love commercial real estate. It's not an easy game to get into. You have to really understand real estate before you get into it. So I had, and I won't jump into what I do now. In that process of that 7-year time that I was in the real estate business, I had run across a process that I thought was very interesting. I always thought outside the box anyway. So I started looking at, tax liens and buying stuff at tax sales, and I realized, well, that's stupid. It's got a clouded title on it. So I found a way, basically, this is a terrible word to use, but it's the only way I can describe it simply without going into a lot of detail or demoing my software to you. But I found a way to circumvent tax sales and pull the title back, perfect the title back in a good position, and not let a title go to a clouded deed. And so we wrote a software around it. It's called Resolve Suite. And in the past 8 months, we've made 2 multimillionaires. We've made 30 millionaires. And out of 50 beta testing people, 10 fell out, 40 stayed in. And, 38 stayed in. And 12 fell out. The 12 fell out. They were just, if you don't make money in this software, you're just lazy. It's that simple. We'll be doing a rollout here. We're only going to we're taking in 100 members. We've got about 60 right now. We're taking 100 members, and then we'll stop and then, basically service those 100 members, and then the following, then we'll skip a month and bring another 100 members. We're going to go to 1,000, and then we're done. Akbar Shamid, who, by the way, is made the 3 Comma Club 4 times this year. Excuse me, 2 Comma Club. I keep saying 3. I don't know why. 2 Comma Club 4 times this year is going to roll out my marketing plan for Resolve Suite. And he has got the integrity of Moses. He's just a really good religious person, and I respect him. And he's not selling fake information, or not fake information, but he's not selling information that's public knowledge. So we're looking forward to that launch of the software. The software it'll be $1 billion software. We're linked in with the U.S. government. Isn't that ironic? We're linked in with the U.S. government, and the software is just amazing. I'm averaging about $10 million. I'm averaging about $20 million a month in contracts, of which I execute about $2 million a month, just because I don't have $20 million a month to buy every contract. And that's what made me want to bring in other members. It's like, look, we're passing these deals up. I don't want to pass them up. First of all, we're helping people because it's distressed properties. And second, or it's lost properties, or it's inherited properties, or it's people just too stupid to know they still own their house because they went through bankruptcy and they don't understand the process. And you'd be surprised at how many people that have been in bankruptcy don't understand the process. I understand it very well. I spent 7 years in it. So that's my quick Cliff Note story of who I am. I own right now probably a couple $100 million of the real estate, and I'm guessing I might own more than that, but I'm kind of guessing. My last personal financial statement was I personally was worth a couple $100 million. God's been good, and we've been through a lot, to say the least. And I also wrote bulls too, so that didn't help either. Wow. But I do think that gave me my grit, and that's how I got my cars, and they're not leased or rented. Nobody loaned them to me. I didn't win them through a program. I bought every damn one of them with my own money, and my wife's still pissed off about it.
Really?
No, wow. I'm playing.
Wow, Scott, I don't even know where to start, man. When you were telling your story about the bucket, I literally thought to myself, an angel. Or I know it's some bad circumstances with your brother, but it seemed like 2 lives were lost that day, and man, it really put chills down my spine when I heard that. Yeah. First, I want to ask: does anyone, after hearing that emotional story, which is a real story of entrepreneurship, does anyone have any questions? Right? Anything right away before I get into it?
I do. Scott, my name is Carol, and I worked for the federal courts, federal probation office for about 30 years.
Uh-oh.
So,
well, you know what? Carol, right?
yes.
Yeah, I want to tell you something. The federal probation office was some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life.
Really great. I was so glad. I didn't know if you had any contact with them because you really were never processed in the court system, right? I mean, they always were looking at indicting you, but never did.
That's correct. They placed me in the compliance caseload. You're going to love this story now. You especially going to love this. I wouldn't have told this had you not just told me this, but you'll really respect this. I was put in the compliance caseload because obviously I wasn't a threat.
Right.
And I literally never saw, I would send in my financial reports each month. Well, what happened was in a 22-month period of time, I started making, my income levels started getting so high.
Yeah.
That, well, he's just got to be doing something illegal. I mean, you know how, people that are in those, no offense to you, but people that are in those areas, they're not used to seeing those numbers.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden they're looking, oh my God, this guy's making millions of dollars a month. What's going on here? So I had a couple of FBI probation officers, FBI probation officers and an FBI agent show up on my doorstep one day, and they wanted to go through all my financial stuff. I said, sure, come on in. And so let's go. Well, they left here, and they decided I didn't do anything wrong. But hey, this guy's got access to Social Security numbers. He's got access to the tag numbers. He's got access to all this information. He's a criminal. So we need to take him out of compliance caseload, put him into something we can monitor him deeper. Well, that pissed me off.
Would too.
So I went back and to the court system and said, I want to be released from probation.
Wow.
So we filed a motion for me to be released from probation 22 months in, and I won.
Good for you.
Wow. So they were,
as a matter of fact, and I can send you if you would like. My email is scott@scottlumley.com. You can email me directly. I can send you the motion where the judge absolutely destroyed the U.S. Attorney's office.
Wow.
She was pissed.
Wow. Well, it sounds to me like
So
they were really stepping. But anyway, when you were talking that story, that was at least familiar ground for me. Real estate isn't, but that was. And I had to tell you, I'm so happy that it turned out like that for you.
Well, thank you. They say once you get in a system like that, you don't get out. But the truth of the matter is, if you do the right thing, you do.
Yeah.
And when you do the wrong things, you don't. I was always due diligent. With, and actually, I'm going to be honest with you. I hate to say this, but I got to. That might have been one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it required me to do paperwork a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
I had to be due diligent with sending in my financial information. It had to be right. It had to be on time. It had to be prompt. There was no latitude. So, I stayed on top of my books better. I paid more attention to my transactions. So it just, I think it was a blessing.
Wow.
This is absolutely mind-blowing. That story is for TED Talk, for sure.
Yeah.
My question is, when is your TED Talk?
Well, let me tell you that story. I just got an echo all of a sudden.
Yeah,
I don't know if y'all can hear that.
Someone's, everybody's mute.
Oh, okay. I think it's stereo.
Okay, so
Go ahead, Scott.
yeah, I still got an echo, but so anyway, I when people come here, basically a year or so ago, when all this happened, and I wrote the book "Don't Look Me Up." I never wanted to talk about. Nobody wants to say, "Hey, look, I got charged with a crime." Nobody wants to say, "Hey, I almost committed suicide," especially when you got money, because you feel like I'm big and bad, and so you want to tell that everybody wants to go tell how they conquered something, but nobody ever wants to talk about the process of conquering it, and the process is the most important part. Winning. I'm never going to be to a point where I felt like I've won. Even when I won world titles, I never wore a world title buckle. I always wore a second place buckle. because I felt like if I ever put on a world champion buckle, then I was done.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm never, money is not my objective here. It never has been. So to be charged with a crime that said I was stealing money was ridiculous. You know, I mean, it was like, that's the stupidest thing in the world. I'd never steal somebody's money. That's the last thing I'd ever do. Matter of fact, I'm the counterpolar opposite. I give it to you before I steal it. And plus, why steal what you asked for? So it all comes down to, so this started my speaking. It started me getting out and talking about business ethics and how quickly you get caught into a trap and you don't even realize you're in it. And that's really kind of what happened there. I mean, let's be honest, we had 200 employees. Do you think I'd done a bill of lading? I mean, come on, really? I'm in the shipping department. Yeah. I mean, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard of. You think I listed on my bankruptcy if I thought I stole it? Mm-hmm. No, you don't list on your bankruptcy. Come on, folks. Mm-hmm. So it just come down to, I mean, it was a debt the company owed, and I listed it. So, you know, it just come down to you get caught in these traps. And most business people that are working every day don't realize that often they're committing crimes and don't even know it. Mm-hmm. Often, not every once in a while. It's like often. 95% of them are committing crimes they don't even know they're doing. Right. And nowadays, you know, whether it be a wire fraud crime, whether it be, hey, look, think about it this way. Y'all internet marketing people right now, and y'all get your $50 or $100 or $500 or $1,000 for your products that you're setting out there. Let's say you get into an argument with somebody, dispute with somebody, and somebody says that you didn't give them what you promised. You say, well, I'll give you a 50% refund. So you send the 50% refund back to them, but you don't, or let's just say you accidentally forget and don't send it. Let's say it's just, you know, you got so many sales, it's just you overlook it. That's called wire fraud. Yeah. That's exactly what that's called. And it is wire fraud. And guess what? It doesn't have a monetary limit on wire fraud. Wire fraud is wire fraud. That's a federal indictment.
Wow.
That's simple. You don't even know you're doing it.
Yeah.
You don't realize what you've done. I mean, you don't realize what you've done until you've done it. And then, you know, let's say that person decides, hey, look, I don't want my $1,000 or $1,500 back or whatever. I don't want my money back. I'm just going to prosecute your tail for taking my money. Well, you know, they can seek an indictment against you. If they get it, you're just up the creek. Mm-hmm. And your whole reputation is the end of your world. Now, you know, and I could give you 1,000 different examples of that, and her being a probation officer, she's very clear on these things. But there's 1,000 things you do wrong accidentally that actually can be conceived as can be construed as crimes. That you go back to intent. Intent's a very funny word.
Yeah.
Did you intend to do it? Well, you took the money. Mm-hmm. So if you didn't intend to do it, why didn't you refund them?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Scott. So I have a question. You mentioned earlier that you don't do this for the money. What is your motivation?
Helping people. Advocating for people that can't defend themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
There's so many people out here that just cannot defend themselves. Resolve Suite is built on is an amazing product. What we're doing is we're taking people that have lost their homes either through a tax sale, through bankruptcy, or assume they've lost their homes to bankruptcy. I've written an algorithm that goes into the clerks and master's office that extracts out this data, and it pulls it back into our software. And the software allows us to navigate through and find people that are still in redemption periods. Here's the problem. You can go do this without me, but you're not going to be able to do it as fast, or you're not going to be able to make as much money. Because my software brings it all to one platform where you can sit at your desk and do it. Mm-hmm. And whereas otherwise you got to go to each clerk and master's office, pull the list, and then you got to go find the people and skip trace the people, and then you have to, you got to get historical data on the property, you got to evaluate the property, you got to go through all this stuff. Well, my software does all this stuff for you. Mm-hmm. You just sit down in front of it and you don't have to go nowhere. So, but simultaneously, when you pick up the phone, and let me tell you something, there is no greater feeling. I'm going to give you one more story here. There is no greater feeling than this. I had a house that I found, and actually I did not find it with my software. It was when I was doing it manually. And that had two 88-year-old black men that fought in World War II were losing their house over $2,700. Actually, they did lose it over $2,700. Well, in the state of Tennessee, there's a 365-day redemption period. Except they needed $2,700. Now, you're sitting there thinking, $2,700. Now, how in the world can somebody not come up with $2,700? Well, try being 88 years old, being black in Tennessee, and living on Social Security, if you had Social Security left after 88 years, which they didn't. They fought in World War II. Can you imagine going through fighting in World War II as a black person? That had to be horrific. And now here they are. They've been in the same home for 60 years. They're losing over $2,700, $121,000 home, 1251 Cedar Street. I remember the name of the address. And Clarksville, Tennessee. Look it up. I own it. So I walked over to them, and I'm sitting there. I'm watching these two guys crying. I actually was there buying another property, and I watched these two guys crying. 88-year-old black men crying. And I walked over to them and said, hey, guys, what's going on? They started telling me the story that they lost their house. They didn't know what they were going to do. They didn't have any family left. Everybody died. They're 88. And they didn't have nobody. They were twin brothers living together. And I said, well, hold on a second. Come out here in my truck with me. Let's go eat, have something to eat and talk. So we went and we had lunch and we talked, and then we went over to Bank of America. I got a cashier's check, went back and bought the house back. And gave it to them. And I said, and I was walking off, and forgive me, God, for not remembering their first names, but their last name was Scruggs. I remember that. But anyway, he said, Mr. Scott, he said, and of course you understand these are 88-year-old black men, so they don't speak like our current black people. And I don't mean that. I'm not being prejudiced. I'm not prejudiced at all. I'm just telling the truth.
Yeah, just say so.
Yeah, and they're very, very. They got a lot of humility to them because of the time they come from. And they said, Mr. Lumley, not good humility, I might add. I want to say that too, but humility. So they said, Mr. Lumley, we're not going to live much longer. We want to stay in our home, but we ain't got nobody to give it to. You just keep it, and we'll just live there. I'm like, no, I don't want your home. I don't want your home. I want you to keep it. Well, you either take it now, or we're just going. Or if you take it, you'll take care of it, and we want you to have it. So, in essence, they kind of gave it to me, and that's got me thinking. Hang on a second here. Now, the entrepreneur kicked in. By the way, be cautious using the word entrepreneur around me, because I think there's a lot of people that think they're entrepreneurs that are not. If you're selling a course on the internet, and now some of you on this phone call might be selling courses on the internet, you're not an entrepreneur. You're a service provider. And that's okay. Don't call yourself an entrepreneur until you have owned LLCs, you have went through trials, tribulations, you've navigated through those things, you understand business inside and out, you understand what you're doing inside and out. You're not you're just a service provider. And that's okay if you're just a service provider. But that doesn't make you an entrepreneur. You've got to earn the title entrepreneur. And you earn it through what I...
Go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, I want to hear what you have to say. Go ahead.
Okay. I have another question. I watched a couple of your videos over the past week when we heard you were coming. And one of the things that rings out of all of them is you talk about doing your due diligence in whatever it is you're in, especially in real estate. How does your software circumvent that requirement?
It doesn't circumvent it. It's one of the most important elements to it. What it allows you to do is it allows you to go in and actually get what we call a total property view report. It literally tells you every mortgage had on it. It tells you size, dimensions, latitude, longitude, shows you pictures of the property. It shows you historical data on the property. Obviously, if it has mortgages on it, it'll show you the mortgage history. It just gives you all the information in a snapshot. Once you have that in a snapshot, it tells you how much it was lost for in lien. It tells you what the value is, tax value. And we base everything off tax value. We do not base off appraised value, because if the county thinks it's worth $80,000, it probably is worth $120,000. but we use tax values just because that's the data streams that we can pull. And so you can do all that in a snapshot. Once you've done it in a snapshot, you got that property contracted, then we do an actual title report where we actually go in and do a title search. And which is the second step to the process. So it's a more in-depth search. And without good data, you can't make a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
And again, I credit to my past to the reason why I have written a software like this, because there's nothing that it doesn't tell you. And it gives you a chance to have a pre-evaluation and a post-evaluation before you actually buy it.
Mm-hmm. May I ask you a question? So
absolutely.
You saved that man's house, and he offered you to inherit that house because I guess they really had nobody, and that's kind of became the first thing. But what happened after? Did you have a breakthrough of buying more homes, or like what was it? What had you, like, what idea sparked in your mind after you did that?
Well, that's a great question, by the way. And yes, I own 5,000 homes right now. And in my portfolio, I say I own them. My company owns them, which is me. I don't have any partners. So, and that's not counting it. I don't count my homes as part of my portfolio. I have a residential portfolio and a commercial portfolio. The portfolio I talked about earlier was my commercial. To answer your question, I realized, wait a minute, this isn't this isn't a one-time situation. This is happening often.
Mm-hmm.
So I put it to test. I literally went and sat down at the clerk and master's office for a week. I would get there at 8 o'clock in the morning. I bring chocolates and coffee and donuts. And I sat at the clerk on the bench. They actually brought me a chair out there after a couple of days. They're very sweet ladies. But I literally sat down. I actually had a desk. No, I'm just kidding. But that was a joke. I actually sat down at the clerk and master's office, and I started watching people come in. And I was noticing that it was happening in literally lines.
Uh-huh.
Like there'd be 8 or 10 people on line.
Wow.
And I've watched single mothers that were pregnant. And I'm not talking about low-life people. They're not bad people. They're just in a bad situation. Now, some were bad people.
Mm-hmm.
But most were just down and out. And trust me, I could relate.
Mm.
So it made me, it dawned on me. I was like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
God's pointing me in a direction here. These people need help, and they need somebody to advocate for them that's not going to take advantage of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what did you do?
And so I started studying the process. And I started studying that process of how I could circumvent. And how it was very, very simple. Negotiate a contract with the people that had lost the house. Sit down with them, have a conversation with them, find out, to let them tell you their story, which, by the way, is very therapeutic. And let them tell you their story. Let them tell you the situation they're in. Let them tell you what they can afford. Let them tell you what they can't afford. Tell you the condition of the property. Let them tell you all this stuff. Negotiate a deal. Hey, look, you've lost your house for $15,000 in taxes. Look, what if I put $10,000 cash in your pocket? The house is worth $150,000. What if I put $10,000 cash in your pocket, pay off your $20,000 mortgage that you've got, and you rent the house from me for $1,000 a month, and you can stay there forever. So I ended up with, I think I calculated 15 10 is 25. I ended up with $35,000 in a $150,000 house.
Mm. Wow.
And they're happy and they love me because they already lost their house. It's gone.
Yep.
And they get to stay in their home. Now, it's kind of a second chance program. So then as time went along, I started migrating into some other things like Section 8. You know, I have mothers in my homes right now. I have a bunch of Section 8 property. You know, Section 8 has a real blight on it because it's traditionally recognized as properties that have people in them that are not worthy. You know, they're drug heads. They're having 15 kids. You know, you hear the word section. Not that I'm opposed to 15 kids, just that you should be able to afford them. But
Yeah.
If you know, I mean, I love every part of having kids, but you need to be, you know, smart about it. But so the Section 8 had such a blind spot. I thought, wait a minute, I've got all these homes, and they're good people. They deserve Section 8 housing. Well, so when I went to Section 8, when I went to the development department, Section 8, I found out that Section 8 is sitting there with billions of dollars that they can't give away because all the counties and communities now don't want Section 8 apartment complexes. That's means you think of Section 8, you think of apartment complexes. Mm-hmm. So all these communities, all these commissioners that were elected, they don't want Section 8 in their communities because it brings bad people.
Yep.
Oh.
So I was like, wait a minute. If I can take grandma at 80 years old who lost her house because her husband died, and I regained that property back for her, I can carry that property, place it in Section 8. It's a good house. It's a beautiful home in a beautiful neighborhood. Put it in a Section 8 program, get a $1,500 a month check off of it. Grandma gets to stay there.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote a software to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a long time to develop software. And it's still in it. It's a beautiful software right now, but it's still evolving. You know, it'll evolve to eventually a compliance department for the United States. Mark what I'm telling you. Now, it might be after my death, but it will evolve to that, because if you think about it, we're perfecting titles back into out of a clouded title situation back into a perfected position, which allows you to have title insurance, which allows you to be able to mortgage it. So it's helping our economy. We're taking properties that are run down because people didn't have the money to pay their taxes. Obviously, they didn't fix the houses up, didn't mow the grass, didn't take care of stuff, didn't paint it, didn't do things. You go in there and spend a little money, clean the house up, make it look pretty. I bought a whole street in Memphis, Tennessee. Y'all talked about Memphis earlier. I bought a whole street in Memphis, Tennessee. I went to the planning department and got basically municipality funds to renovate the whole street because it brought the community. It was an enhancement to the community. So they paid me to fix the houses. They paid for my houses to be fixed.
So you're saying that Scott, you're saying a lot of cities, they're behind you, especially when you're trying to improve certain conditions of, you know, like Section 8,
absolutely behind me.
Wow.
And I've got 100 examples of it.
Now, how much is your software, by the way?
It's $4,200 for 12 hours of training. It's live training, much like you are on y'all's thing now, except there will actually be somebody that you can see. It's 12 hours of live training. It costs $4,200. The reason the software is not cheap, but it's effective. And at the end of 12 hours, if you need more training, we give you more training, no cost. But and you got constant communication with your the person that'll be training you. We have a word for that. I can't take it at 5:30 in the morning. So, and then it's $5,000 a month for the first 6 months inside the software and $10,000 a month after that. And you say, well, good Lord, Scott, that's expensive. No, it's not. It's $65,000 a year for you to get this software for 1 year. Let me tell you statistical averages of everybody that's been involved in it so far in beta. I've got one kid who's 31 years old who's worth has made $2.5 million inside the software. His name's Clint Ratliff. I've got a hairdresser, 65-year-old hairdresser, who made $150,000 the first month. I've got Akbar, the big marketing guy I was telling you about earlier. He's in training right now. His first phone call, he got a contract. I mean, I can sit here and just pop off one right after the other. If you look at it as that you can close one transaction and it pays for your software for a year and then you can run wide open, then it's cheap. Yeah. But if you're looking at it as $5,000 a month, then it's expensive. So, but if you're working, you're gonna make a lot of money.
A group of guys, like let's say if somebody created like a real estate group where they were going to invest properties together, one person could actually combine their money together and actually pay for that software and go in together if they wanted to also.
As long as one person, yes, you can create a fund behind you. As long as one person is operating the software, you're only one. It's licensed to one ID. It's licensed to one IP address. As long as there's only one person inside that software, yeah. And I guess you could rotate people in chairs, absolutely.
That's brilliant.
But we also have a private label, which breaks it down into components.
Mm-hmm.
And the private label is $5 million, and we've sold 2.
Private label.
Yeah.
That's more.
And basically, where you have my software that you can put your own name on, and you have a full-blown company. Where you can go, it breaks it down into every segment. Data mining, calling, closing, underwriting. It breaks it all down into components. And the software reports everything back. You can transfer stuff between departments. The software's incredible.
Wow.
So, but it's expensive. I don't ever suggest anybody, I mean, if you got $5 million, wonderful. If you want to make, the software is designed for somebody that wants to do, $200 to $300 million a year. But you got to have big money behind you to buy software, to buy the license, the full-blown license. You got a here's the thing. I don't suggest anybody buy the license unless you have a hedge fund behind you or big money.
Yeah.
People, entrepreneurs like all of us probably on the telephone, a membership is all you need. Because you can't, as you start getting in this and building your pipeline, you won't even be able to close on all the deals. You can't do it. I don't do it. If I don't do it, you sure ain't going to do it.
Yeah.
So it's just impossible to close all the contracts because there's so many people in bad situations. Now, you think about this right now. We have a beautiful economy right now, don't we? We got real estate is hotter than it's ever been. Everybody wants in real estate. It's the hottest market in the world. And I'm making millionaires in the hottest market in the world. Can you imagine what's going to happen when it downturns? Can you imagine how powerful my software will be then?
Wow.
So, because you're going to have more people losing properties. So, yeah, and most people don't catch that. But this software, there's going to be more people in those lines when this economy starts going back down. So my software is what you call a downturn software. Very seldom do you ever hear of a company that thrives in a downturn. This will.
That thrives in a downturn. Yeah. Huh. Wow.
Scott.
I know I've done a lot of talking, folks. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. We're speechless. I think.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Pat. Scott, how you doing today?
Hi, Miss Pat. How you doing?
Good. I have a question for you. Do you leverage all of your properties?
Well, you're smart folks on here, aren't you? Okay, that's another great question. Here's what I do. Obviously, I can't afford to pay off every grandma's house and have her stay in it. That wouldn't make sense.
Sure.
I couldn't financially afford to do that. So what I like to do is I'll package homes together. Let's say I have 4 homes that nobody wants to stay in. I can rent those houses out. Let me give another number. Let's say I have 7 homes that nobody wants to stay in. I can go in and clean them up, recarpet them, repaint them, rent them out, make $1,000 a month, hypothetically, just for easy calculations. So that gives me $7,000 a month income. And I'm going to look at the values of those properties too. Let's say they're all, and I'm going to just use silly numbers so I can make it easy math because it's early in the morning and I'm stupid. So let's say it's $100,000 house. I'm going to take 10 $100,000 houses. 3 of them are going to have grandma in it. And I'm going to borrow $1 million. Excuse me. I'm sorry. They're going to be worth $1 million. I didn't mean to say that. They're going to be worth $1 million. Well, I've only given 12 cents on the dollar. That's the statistical average that I pay for these houses is 12 cents on the dollar. Now, it might be 15 and it might be 8, but it averages about 12. So I'm going to have $120,000 in those 10 houses. That's all I've got in it. Not counting construction. Usually the figure will double with construction. So let's say I have $250,000 in it, and I've got 10 houses, of which I've got $7,000 a month income coming in.
Yeah.
So basically, I can take and borrow $1 million, get a loan for get a loan for a 50% LTV, which is $500,000. I just doubled my money, and I have a $7,000 a month income coming in. I've got a $3,800 a month payment on, and I got 3 grandmas that get to live in their house rent free.
Yeah.
So God's blessed me by being able to help the 3 grandmas and let them live in a house rent-free, and or get them Section 8 housing and create an income off of it. But that takes time to do, sometimes upwards to a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got money invested in those houses that I don't, I can't afford to leave it sitting in there. I can afford to leave it sitting in there, but most people can't. You can't. You want to roll your money. So you go get a 50% LTV, get a $500,000 loan, pull $250,000 profit back out of that deal, turn right around and reinvest your $250 in another 10 homes, and just keep doing it over and over and over. And ultimately, you'll end up with 5,000 homes. Here's the thing. Because there's such high equity in the properties is why you're able to do this.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Question.
I think, yes,
the software that you've been talking about. Now, to do this, I mean, obviously there's some money that's involved in the training and things of that nature, but is there, I mean, do you have to have money for, I guess, I don't know very much about real estate. Do you have to have a license for the commercial real estate?
Absolutely do not. Here's the thing. The probation officer is going to love this one. Because when I say this, people go, what? Here's the way I feel about a real estate license. First of all, in order for you to represent a third party, you have to have a license.
Mm-hmm.
Of any kind, for anything that you do, whether that be an attorney, a doctor, whatever, you have to have a license. But to represent yourself, you do not have to have a license, not even as an attorney. You walk in and represent yourself pro se. So as long as you are not representing a third party and you're doing it yourself, you do not have to have a real estate license of any kind. Now, and as a matter of fact, if you do have a real estate license, after 6 months of my software, you will retire it. And I'm going to tell you why you're going to retire it. What will happen is you're going to see that because you're under a governing board and you have to report to a governing board, a licensing board, that you're under a whole set of ethics that's totally different, that's unnecessary. So you'll retire your license because you're going to be like, you have your own ethical boundaries. Your ethics will be greater than the ethics board for the real estate, because when we vet people into this, let me tell you something right now. There's people in this call that might not ever be in my, you might call and say, I want to be in your software, but you might not be.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we do is we have a certain criteria that we require. Because the last thing that will ever happen to Scott Lumley again, ever, is for somebody to question my integrity.
Yeah.
That will never happen again, period. Which is why I hate guys like Dan Henry. I can't stand them. They're the real frauds. They're the real crooks. They're the real criminals.
Yeah.
And it makes me mad.
I hear a lot of people when they talk about like real estate, like we used to have a guy in here named Alex, and he would actually, there's a lot of people that are positioned on when they do the real estate, like they find the deals. They're more of a middleman. And again, forgive me if it's ignorant, because I really don't know much about the real estate game. But is this something like when I use like this software, is this something that's going to help me leverage my own money to buy properties, or is this something that's helping me connect the dots to find people that are trying to buy properties to people that are trying to sell properties, and I make the money in the middle?
It's not a broker software, although you can use it as a broker software. It's mainly designed for people that have a little bit of money. First of all, you don't have to have any experience. That's the first thing. Let me say that. No experience is required in this at all, because basically all you're doing is selling.
Yeah, I can tell.
We do all the underwriting. I'm sorry?
I said I can
You can
tell.
Yeah. Well, then you fit the software. But that's the nice thing about the software, the way it's designed, is it's designed for you just simply to sell. You learn the scripts, you learn what to say, you learn what not to say, you learn the ethical part of it, you learn what will allow you to do, what we won't allow you to do. All you do is sit there and sell. All the underwriting stuff is done inside our office with our attorneys. I have in-house attorneys that work in my office every day, that you can pick up the phone, call my office, and talk to an attorney on a moment's notice. Because there's sometimes there's things that will be, first of all, the underwriting process, there's legal things that have to be done. But as far as you're concerned inside the software, not at all. You just have to be ethical. I can tell you right now, if I find out you threw grandma at your house, you're out of software, and I might come after you. Because, and I have done it. I can go and tell you right now, I've already had one guy prosecuted.
Mm.
And because I'm never going to have somebody come at me ever again and say that I've done something I shouldn't have done, ever. As a matter of fact, I'm going to advocate for people that can't advocate for themselves. And even if my own people hurt them, I'm coming after my own people.
Yeah.
And because I'm standing up for I'm standing up for little people now. So the original question is what drives me if it isn't money? Now, I like making money. I ain't stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. But what drives me is these stories. I can give you 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And to know that you're helping these people and you're making money at the same time, you know, there's no greater blessing. You're helping the municipalities because you're getting the taxes paid back to them. You're helping the economy because you're because you're able to put stuff in a title format. But to answer the other guy's question, yes, you can use your own money and buy properties if you want to hold them in your portfolio. You can paper it up and flip the paper to someone who's interested in holding portfolios. You can we have an auction platform that's private. Once you become a member, you'll find out who it is. And if you have investors or friends that are just interested in buying property, you can send them to that auction site. And on average, it's a piece of property stays on there 8 to 10 days. Just because everybody's looking for flip properties. You know, these flippers out here, and if anybody's on here as a flipper, I'm sorry. These flippers out here, they're having a hard time finding these properties that have any type of equity in them. But by the time they get done, heck, they make $15,000 or $20,000, and they've had to spend 4 months with their money leveraged and work their tails off in the process. Well, that's the dumbest game on earth.
Mm.
I mean, it literally is the dumbest game on earth.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I don't want to work that hard.
Mm-mm.
And what I done is everybody's like, well, okay, how did you get all your commercial real estate? Well, we started off telling the story earlier about leveraging those properties, and I made $250,000 off those 10 houses. I did that. Yep. I turn around and take that $250,000 and I go after Starbucks. This $2.5 million, or excuse me, it wouldn't be that much, $1.7 million. And I'll put down 20%, which is my $250,000, and I'll get a net deal making 8 or 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it with a Fortune 100 company where I know I'm secure or fairly secure. As secure as you can be in an investment like that. Oh, I'll pay it down. I'll pay it down where it makes sense. And I'll use my cash. I'll 1031 my cash out of these properties and put it back over into these commercial real estate. And I just continue. That way I don't pay any taxes, or not much in taxes. And I take it and I just buy more and more commercial real estate because it's easy money. To own I've got about 8 Starbucks.
Wow.
And each one of them pay me $21,000 a month. And I think my note, I think I'm maybe $16,000 a month on each one. So I'm making $4,000 or $5,000 a month each Starbucks. And it's just like, hey, the check, not the check, but the ACH is in the bank on the 1st of every month.
Scott, can your software be used for commercial property or just residential only?
Both, commercial and residential.
Wow. A client that pays $21,000 a month. Wow.
I got a bunch of them. I got hundreds of them that do that. Listen, here's the thing. Sorry, I want to hear whatever you're fixing to say, but here's the thing. Real estate's not hard. People think it's hard because they have to have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
They think they have to have a lot of money. No, you don't. You just got to start off in the right area.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, and you don't have to, don't be in a hurry. Don't rush your deals. You rush deals, any business deal for that matter. You rush business deals is when you make mistakes. You rush business deals is when you're going to lose money.
Yeah.
Take your time. Hold your breath. Don't get in a hurry.
Scott, I'm going to have to take a couple of days after this conversation, man, and just process everything I just heard. Because,
same here.
Wow. Man. I see what you're saying, because down south, I live in the Midwest now, but down south, I can see a lot of stories of people who are living in homes and the taxes take them right out of that deal, take them right out of that situation. Back taxes. There were so many people.
Where do you live?
Well, I live in South Dakota now, but I grew up in Mississippi. even my own grandparents' home, there was a time when they had passed away, the taxes, they forgot about them. Well, we had an uncle that went in and he wasn't really on his game financially. And the taxes, you know, they became
perfect
high.
example.
Yeah. Totally.
Perfect example. And by the way, South Dakota, there's properties being lost there too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
So
it
it's
is.
not just, it's all of you. I've got properties in California. I've got properties in Texas. I've got properties in North Carolina. I've got properties in New York. I've got properties in Massachusetts. I mean, all over right now. All over.
Yeah.
Seattle.
And people are actually acquiring properties just by paying the back taxes.
Well, once you've negotiated an agreement with the owner, yes.
Yeah. Wow.
And like I said, you can do this without me. You can go out there right now and start doing this. The problem is you can't do it with the speed of which my software can do it.
Of course.
My software can close your transaction in 4 days. It'll take you 3 months. First of all, you can't find the people. Y'all could give me a name of any person on this phone call right now, and once I wake up
Mm-hmm.
and get to the office, I can call you back and tell you everything about that person, all the way down to the cars that they bought 10 years ago.
Mm.
And I mean everything about that person. Now, I don't give that power of the software out, which was what the federal government was worried about.
Yeah,
which is what the... say that again?
Yeah, we're easy. We'll just tell you.
Yeah.
The point is it's for real estate purposes. It's not for me hooking up people for random stuff, but which I don't do. I did do Dan Henry, but his name's not Dan Henry. He has another last name. It's Von Jong Kong or something like that. It's a weird German-like name.
Yeah.
So I don't know if y'all... His name's not Dan Henry.
Well, yeah, you can look and tell that maybe he's from somewhere else. Or
yeah, he's not Dan. His name is not Dan Henry. It's something else. So I think most people would call that a fraud, but nowadays we just call it alias.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Henry's a lot easier than Vosberg.
Yeah.
Our last name is Vosberg. So there you go, another German name.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I didn't mean any offense to the Germans. That's just what he had. His name is German.
Oh, no. Yeah. But, Scott, we usually keep this around an hour, and I want to thank you for that. I mean, I definitely will be reaching back with you on this because what you said is interesting because now, like I said, we've been buying property, and with these tax, I guess the proper word to say is tax liens, these situations, it sounds interesting, very interesting, because you can acquire property for not as much.
It's kind of like foreclosure. Is it similar?
It's kind of like foreclosure. It's kind of like foreclosure without the foreclosure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, without the foreclosure. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Does anyone else have?
I'm
sorry. No, go ahead, Scott. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, folks. I like to describe it as you're getting in front of the waterfall. You know, once you're in foreclosure, the waterfall's already hitting the ground.
Okay.
This right here is allowing you to get in front of the waterfall before all that stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man, we've seen foreclosures taking 7-8 years now.
Wow.
Which brings me back to 60% of the properties inside my software do not have mortgages. The other 40% do. Of that 40%, 50% of those mortgages we can get released for no money.
No mortgage.
Because
wow.
That's right. And let me tell you why. She just made a statement that we see more the foreclosures, it takes 7 or 8 years. The reason why is the banks are writing those mortgages down in that 7-8 period of time. By law, they have to have it off their books. And by FDIC rules, they have to have it off their books in 7 years. If they do not have it off their books in 7 years, then they're penalized when they're borrowing money from the Federal Reserve. They're penalized heavily, like 7 times the amount of money it costs them in borrowing power. So they'll write that off. If they write that off in that 7-year period of time, then if you were to pop up and say, hey, I want to pay off this $30,000 mortgage, it ain't worth the trouble for them to take and reverse that process in their accounting.
I've got a question on that.
They're just going to give you a release. And I can give you, I've got hundreds of them laying over here.
I have it's kind of an obscure question, but with the, if a bank buys a mortgage, does that reset the clock on that?
That's another interesting thing. Well, y'all are smart folks. In 2008, when we had the market crash, all these mortgages were getting shuffled around, but from bank to bank to bank. So a lot of the states wrote new laws. The state of Tennessee was real strong about it. They said if you do not have the wet copy, if you don't have the document that the person signed in the closing, you don't have a mortgage on that collateral. You have to release the collateral. And it's you know, what's that word? Precedented. There's a lot of case law. A lot of case law. So when the mortgages get sold from one to the other, often now, especially in our digital age, they transfer stuff digitally, and people are just don't know no better. They're not educated, which is why I advocate for them. They're not educated, and it's not a bad thing that that's not what you do. You know, you're out here working a 40-hour-a-week job, or you're off running your company or doing whatever. You're not thinking about the laws the states are writing. And so they wrote this law that if it changed hands, that you had to have the original copy. If you don't have the original copy, you're not collateralized. You have to release the mortgage. So now, in some cases, they do transfer those documents. So each one is different. But we're finding that about 65, 70% of all mortgages that we go after, we get released.
We know someone personally who's not paid a mortgage payment probably in about 8 years, and they're still living in the house, and it's in foreclosure, and they have lost their paperwork, and they keep asking them for original paperwork, and they're like, "Nope, sorry, I have nothing."
Here's what you need to do. You need to have them have their attorney write a letter and say, we want this mortgage released immediately. And if you take action on foreclosure, we're going to sue you for damages. And they're going to get treble damages because it's basically consumer fraud. Yeah. And they'll win 3 times the amount of money. So they need to immediately have their attorney fire a letter to them and say, release my mortgage. Yeah. We want to release immediately, or we're going to sue you for 3 times the amount of money, and you will win. If you do not produce the original document, we want the original document in hand.
Yeah, they lost the original documents.
Yep. So that's the reason why they haven't foreclosed.
Yep. That's right.
That's right.
And if they sell that document off to somebody else, which happens a lot, they'll sell off somebody else and they'll try to foreclose then and take title to it. Right. Just make sure you go to court. When you go to court, have the attorney say, "Hey, do you have original documents here? Because if you don't, this collateral. I want to release from this collateral. You'll win."
Yeah.
And I guess I'm speechless because I know this is a real problem in the United States of America, and it just makes so much sense what you're doing. Yeah. Wow.
Well, all my stuff has come from Charleston Tribune. I have a little tagline that I've come up with. You know, my adversity has given me my diversity.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So,
we have vacancies in our book club.
What's she say?
She says we have vacancies in our book club. Like you can join. That's what she said.
That's sweet of you. Thank you.
Do you read, Scott? Well, I know you read.
No. I read. I don't want to answer that question. I read about things that are pertinent to what I'm doing. I don't read motivational books. I don't read business books.
Write them?
I know that, ma'am.
She said you just write them.
Do you just write them?
Well, I've only written one. It wasn't about business. I actually thought my book was going to be how smart I was and how cool I was and how intelligent I was, and then I realized it was more about suicide prevention and how many times I'd screwed up. And it become more of an inspirational book. I thought it was going to be what a really badass I was in business, and it was nothing like that. After I got done writing it, I realized, ooh, this is sad.
Mm-hmm. But it's real.
But it was real, and it was sad. But again, I have a hard time. You know, it's like I went to college for about 3 days, and I was sitting there listening to a professor talk about finance. And then finally I asked him, can I see your personal financial statement?
Scott,
and he looked at me like, yeah.
I just want to tell you, that story you're saying, that you're telling, is probably a high percentage of the books that we read about people who say that same thing, that the people that are teaching or that are, you know, teaching the subject, whatever, really don't know what they're talking about. Or they're just holding positions.
Following a book.
Yeah.
Well, they have no practicality to them. They only have applied education, and they have no practicality to them. They've never done it. They truly don't know the answer to the question. They're just reading a textbook that somebody else wrote, and you know, it's more of a history lesson than it is a finance class.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they might as well be reading the Bible. So, so I just have a profound. I mean, I'm not saying there's not good books out there that you can educate yourself with, and I think that there's a lot of good in books. It's just not something I do because it tends to skew your thought process. Because if you read 4 books, you're going to get 4 different opinions. Mm-hmm. Before long, it's kind of like I use this analogy all the time. Y'all love this one. It's kind of like when you're playing baseball and you're up there with a bat, and all the men can probably relate to this, and you got 4 different coaches telling you 4 different ways to swing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before long, you ain't gonna hit crap
because
you're so confused on what to do.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta, well, we are kind of trying. We are learning different books, but we are trying to kind of pick what works for us. You know, what in this book we can take, because it's definitely a lot of books have, or a lot of ideas has totally different approach. So yeah, but we definitely would read your book because
definitely.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be on the list.
Scott, we have an appointment and have to leave, but thank you so much. That was very informative, and we can't thank you enough for taking the time.
Yes, thank you.
Enjoyed it, brother.
Yeah.
We'll see y'all later.
Yeah.
And sorry we have to cut out before y'all are done talking.
No problem. We're going to wrap it up here.
Chuck, can I call you while you're on the road?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Scott, I just want to say thank you, brother, for coming out here and telling your story. And this is something that we all can relate to. And I love your software. It's something that I see as a great need. Wow. I mean, it's brilliant what you're doing, and you're helping people at the same time. So
so satisfactory. I just want to say your suicide story just blew my mind.
Yeah.
Like it's thought, you know, like that's why I don't read fantasy and I don't really like mystery, because I think life is real life. So things that happen in the real life are, you know, you will never come up with it in your mind, like in your fantasy. Like things that you shared about your suicide, your trial with suicide is mind-blowing, and how everything turned out. So, man,
yeah,
that would just, yeah. We don't have much to say.
So does anyone else have any questions before we end the call?
When are you coming back?
well, at 5 o'clock in the morning, it won't be soon. I'm already right now looking at I'm already laying here. I'm actually laying in bed looking at my ceiling right now. I think I have 4 ceiling fans.
4 ceiling fans. Are you married? Are you married, by the way, Scott?
I am married, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I see a lot of, I see, and I just want to say too, Scott used to ride bulls professionally.
Yeah, that was in my dumb days.
Veronica is from, but that takes a lot of courage right there, by the way. So, but Scott, man, thank you, man. And, you know, I definitely be reaching, you know, back, you know, to you, whatever, off on Facebook, whatever. And I'm going to be posting this in the book club and my YouTube channel also. So, man, thanks again for coming and sharing that information.
Well, I hope y'all enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. Well, take care, and we're getting ready to end the call. So
have a good day, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
See y'all.